You know, every single time you press that power button, a silent story starts to unfold inside your computer. It's a story that's told in these little sparks of electricity and whispers of code, and it leaves behind a trail of digital breadcrumbs. So today, we're going to put on our detective hats and follow that trail.
This line right here, it just gets to the absolute heart of why this stuff matters. I mean, in the super high-stakes world of digital forensics, understanding a computer's most basic process, that isn't just some technical trivia, no way. It's the key to unlocking evidence, to revealing the truth. So for the next few minutes, you're the examiner, and this is our crime scene. All right, let's dive right in. To really understand any digital crime scene, you first need to get familiar with your toolkit. So we're going to break down the computer's boot process step by step, just like an investigator would, to see how a machine really comes to life and, where it might be hiding its secrets. Yeah. Try thinking of booting up not just as, starting your computer, but as the opening chapter of a story. This whole sequence is a standardized, predictable process. And for a forensic examiner, that predictability, it's absolute gold. It means they know exactly where to look for the first clues, those first traces of what a machine has been up to. Okay, so before we can even begin to follow the action, we need to know the players involved. So we're opening up the evidence locker, so to speak, to look at the computer's core components. And these aren't just pieces of hardware. They are the physical locations where evidence gets created, stored, or sometimes, poof, lost forever.
So you've got the motherboard, which is basically the foundation, the scene of the crime connecting everything. The CPU, well, that's the mastermind, the brain of the whole operation, executing every single instruction. Then you have the hard drive, our permanent record. Think of it like the filing cabinet that holds all the case files. And then there's RAM. RAM is the computer's short-term memory. It's like the detective's messy desk, just covered in notes and clues about what's happening right now.
Now here's what's so incredibly important about this. You've got to understand the difference between RAM and ROM. RAM is volatile, kind of like a conversation. The moment you cut the power, everything in it just vanishes, gone. But ROM, that's read-only memory, is non-volatile. It's like a book of instructions that's been permanently printed. This is so crucial for investigators. If you pull the plug at the wrong time, all that critical evidence sitting in RAM, like running programs, active network connections, it's just gone for good. So let's get to the inciting incident of our story. That moment you press the power button. That one simple action unleashes a spark of electricity that awakens all these otherwise dead components, kicking off a massive chain reaction that brings the whole system roaring to life. So the very first thing that happens is the power supply actually checks itself. Makes sense, right? Once it gives the all clear, it sends that spark to the CPU. The CPU wakes up and immediately looks to the ROM BIOS. That's the basic input-output system for its first set of marching orders. And those orders are to begin something called the POST, or the Power On Self-Test. This is basically the computer's morning routine. It does a super quick inventory, checking to make sure its brain, its memory, and all its senses are connected and working properly before it even tries to do anything else.
So, the hardware check is complete. The machine now knows all its parts are in working order. What's its next mission? Well, it's to find the master set of instructions, the operating system, that will tell it how to actually be a computer. The hunt for the OS has begun.
The computer starts this search at a very specific address, the absolute first sector of the hard drive. And right there, it expects to find something called the Master Boot Record, or MBR. You can really think of the MBR as the gatekeeper. It holds two critical things, a tiny little program to kickstart the next step, and, just as important, a partition table. This table is essentially the drive's table of contents, telling the computer exactly how the drive is divided up. And this table here kind of shows us what that search looks like. The MBR scans this thing for one very specific clue, a flag that marks a partition as active or bootable. A lot of the time, it's a specific code, like hex 80 here, that basically just shouts, "Hey, start right here." Now, for an investigator, this is critical. If some piece of malware has changed this boot record to point to a malicious program instead of the real operating system, well, this is one of the very first places they'd look for tampering. As soon as the MBR finds that correct active partition, it knows exactly where to go next.
So, think of this like a crucial handoff, like passing a baton in a relay race. The MBR's only job was to find the right door. Now that it's found it, it passes the key to the code that's waiting on the other side, that partition's very own boot record. And this next piece of code is what finally has the instructions to launch the operating system and bring you to your desktop.
Okay, we've booted up, But how in the world does the computer make sense of the billions of ones and zeros just sitting on the hard drive? Well, that is the final piece of our puzzle, the file system. It's this invisible structure that organizes all the data, turning what would be a chaotic digital mess into neatly organized evidence.
Honestly, this is the perfect analogy. Just think about it. Without a librarian would just be a giant warehouse full of books in no particular order. You'd never find a thing. A file system does the exact same thing for your data. It's the organizational mastermind that knows where every single piece of information is stored.
So this librarian has a few main jobs. First, it gives your files names. It also keeps a detailed map of exactly where each file's data is physically located on the drive. It tracks which parts of the drive are full and which parts are empty. And, this is the big one for an investigator, it stores metadata. That's the data about the data. Things like when a file was created or last opened. These are the digital fingerprints left all over the evidence.
So, there you have it. From just a simple spark of electricity to a fully organized system of files, that boot process creates this incredibly detailed record of activity. It's a story that unfolds every single day, and we usually don't even notice. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? What digital traces are you leaving behind, and what story are they telling?